Okay, so it was announced that I'm a psychologist and practitioner, and this is correct. I work as a psychotherapist, and there are some people in the psychological field who also do meditation. Of course, it's not very unique, but I think that I can contribute a little bit more depth to that. You are obviously also a colleague in psychology and psychotherapy. Does anyone else have experience in psychological stuff? Anyone else has experience in psychology and psychotherapy? Okay. So some of the things that I will say will be kind of alien to you or not known, and everyone else in the Zoom chat as well. But to the ones who have some experience in self-development or psychological methods or therapy, and in Buddhism, they might maybe get a little bit of a different understanding of this practice. So I can talk a little bit about what is the difference between psychology and Buddhist practice or meditation in general. When we approach psychology, be it in self-development or in therapy, what we usually try to do is we try to improve the circumstances of the mind, right? So we try to make you feel better. We try to make you think in a different way, in a more positive way, in a more beneficial, effective way, whatever it is, or to let yourself to be more self-loving, to be more opening up to the possibilities and to the potential that you have. These are all expressions that basically mean the same. Now, meditation in Buddhism there is an overlap. Especially in the beginning, we try to set up a positive environment for the mind as well. But this is not essentially the hardcore of what we're trying to do in meditation. We are not too much interested in creating an ideal environment, or to hack the mind, or to tweak the mind in a certain way. What we try to do is set up the mind so that it can perceive the reality of the mind, or the truth of the mind. What does it mean? The mind, when it works, when it creates feelings, when it creates memories, thoughts, all of these things, is like a weird genie. So when you talk to your mother, she can easily annoy you, right? So she says, don't forget your sweater, it's cold outside, and then feelings happen, right? For example, I don't know, but I'm just guessing because it's a typical thing. Or I hope you eat well, or something like that. So we have a cause and we have an effect, right? So this is in a therapeutic approach. We would try to improve the way that you can interact with your mother, with your partner, with your boss, or something like that. So this would be an example of how to create a positive environment in the mind so that I don't suffer very much. When I come from a spiritual point of view, from the Buddhist point of view, yes, of course, I hope that I don't suffer so much from the interaction, but what is more essential is to understand, look, there are feelings, and feelings have conditions. And talking to people that I'm attached to, now this is kind of spiritual language, attachment, so I'm attached to my mother in a certain way, I'm attached to my girlfriend, to my boss in a certain way. When you talk to someone that you are attached to, feelings will happen, and often difficult feelings. So this is a statement of truth. If you engage or not, if you want to change your relationship with your mother or your girlfriend, boyfriend, boss, whatever, that is up to you. But basically, then kind of you have to admit that the statement as such is true. I'm communicating with someone that I'm attached to, or I'm thinking about someone that I'm attached to, or I'm doing something for someone that I'm attached to, or I experience an action from someone that I'm attached to. There will be emotions as a consequence. There will be memories, expectations, hopes, wishes, frustrations, all of these things, right? So the one approach is to change circumstances so that the feelings that come up are positive. The other approach is to make a truth statement. Now, this is on a very kind of basic, superficial level. I think everyone can understand that. What Buddhism tries to do, or kind of valuable spiritual traditions try to do, is to go deeper with those truth statements, right? So that there is more understanding about this complex machine that we are somehow inhibiting. And then what we do about it is, there's often not a clear-cut solution of what we can do about it, but there is a certain piece of knowing, like, oh, okay, I know some truth about the mind. I don't know yet exactly how to talk to my girlfriend or to my boss, or I have to do a presentation. I don't know yet what to do with my anxiety or with my stress, but I understand, okay, pressure, expectations, attachment lead to a certain perceived stress. And now I have a little bit of a map of the mind. Okay, so a bit more in general, the normal experiences that we have, to get a little bit more philosophical and abstract in the language, a lot depends on circumstances or chance, right? So it's winter time, it gets dark sooner, I'm a little bit more down. I feel like staying at home, I'm not as energetic. This is circumstance, this is chance. The goal of spirituality is to strip away my being, my experience, from all of those random circumstantial experiences. And what we end up with is categories. Categories are true. Circumstances vary. It's summer, it's winter, it's cold and cold, people are yelling, or I'm in a peaceful kind of meditation environment. These are the circumstances. What spirituality does, it arrives at categories. And the Buddhist category, different sets of Buddhist categories, but the main ones are the so-called khandhas. People versed in Buddhism are used to them. They know the terms. They're basically just groups, or I think a valid translation of the khandhas is categories. And the categories, I need some help to get them all together, but one of them is the so-called form, which you can see as your body, or maybe central experiences. This is a category, so it doesn't matter how you are, how you feel, there is a materiality to things. Like this doesn't go away, right? Or your visual experiences, even if you're blind, visual experiences somehow are there in the mind, or auditory experiences, or all of that. It's still there. Second category is feelings. There might be some people who say, I don't feel anything, but let's leave that for the side. They still feel something unconsciously, but they don't experience it, as some other people experience it. What is the time? Sanya. Okay, so this will be the core kind of sensual experiences. So we have materiality on the one hand, but then the experience of the senses is another category. Then we have sankhara, which is difficult kind of to comprehend, but it's something maybe like memories. It's kind of the complex mental aspects that we have, thoughts, memories, concepts. All of these are there. It doesn't matter what the concepts are that you're dealing with. Concepts are there. And the last one would be consciousness. Consciousness, if you're alive as a human being, then usually consciousness in some way or another is there, consciously or unconsciously. Okay, so these are the categories that Buddhism arrives at. And the teaching of the Buddha is, and this is quite specific to historical Buddhism at least, that the Buddha says none of them is you. Or if I put it in the kind of philosophical language that I introduced before, all of these things are circumstantial. If you attach yourself to the circumstantial or the random kind of expression of these categories, you will get in trouble. Why? Because none of this is fixed. You understand feelings are there no matter what, no problem there. But if you get hooked on feelings, if you want good feelings all the time and want to avoid bad feelings, then you're in trouble, because it's not in the nature of things, it's not in the nature of feelings or thoughts or memories or sensory experiences. It's not in the nature to stay the same. So if I'm highly sensitive, for example, and I want to protect myself, right? Naturally, I want to avoid negative feelings. I want to avoid toxic people, as they're called today. or difficult circumstances, and I try to build my boundaries, set limits, all of this kind of psychological talk. This is psychology. It's healthy if you can do it. It's unhealthy if I'm too inflexible, because the world, doesn't care about my limits and my boundaries. So I can either shut myself off and stay in the room, but even then I will have my anxiety. The approach of Buddhism is to say, look, this is just a fact. You have to deal with the fact. Or better, and this is more kind of Buddhist, to practice not self, which means learn to see that this is not you. Don't attach to these things. Don't identify with certain feelings. So as to say, oh, the true me is happy. Like the true me is benevolent, like my personality is to help people. I'm happy and open-minded, like this is me. Angry me is not me. Unhappy me is not me. So I've identified with a very specific character within my mind, the character that I would like to be, the character that is happy, and identify with that. And the Buddha says that basically it's problematic to do that because you always have to kind of fix the issues that are created by that. You cannot maintain it all the time. Now, psychology and psychotherapy would say, that's fine, let's just figure out kind of the fine tunes. Let's figure out how you can perceive yourself and be in touch with others and the world so that you can more or less maintain a happy life, so that you can, as much as possible, be that happy person that is benevolent and helps people and so on. Buddhism is not interested kind of in this relative approach. It says, well, ultimately you're doomed if you're trying to do that. You are much more on safer ground existentially if you understand and if you kind of accept that there is a layer, that the layer of uncontrollability that you will never touch. Like in some way, life events will throw you around in one way or another. Okay, there are kind of more levels to the, so to put it a little bit more into context, historical Buddhism had a context, a conceptual context, and one important context was rebirth. Not everything relies on the idea of rebirth, and especially the ones of you who are not kind of deep into Buddhism, you don't have to too much care about it, but the deeper you get into Buddhist practice, the more the idea of rebirth becomes important. And there are two ways to understand rebirth. Historically, it was a real rebirth, which means this body dies and then the mind in some way or another gets reborn as a human being or in a different realm. There is a more modern interpretation of rebirth, which says that rebirth happens from moment to moment. Each time each split second, you're reborn into a slightly different version of what you've been before. And kind of the glue of that is what they call karma, or what happens with the mind. So by getting more in line with truth in the mind, which is the so-called Dhamma in Buddhism, the more you get in line with the truth, the more kind of beneficial the rebirth in the next moment will be, or ultimately there is what is called liberation, nirvana, and everything else. Okay, so this is the concept, the big kind of concept of historical Buddhism. It's not important to believe it or not believe it. This is important only in later stages. But what it highlights is that truth is very important for Buddhism, and for the Buddha, this was kind of the highest truth, which led to the highest liberation. Okay, now let's get more into kind of the psychological aspects of the mind, and with this I will lead into the practice that I suggest today. There are many ways to meditate. Breath meditation is one of the classical ones. Today I suggest another type of meditation, And the type of meditation that I suggest today is non-movement. This has, for the people who are kind of versed in Pali and the Buddhist texts, the term is aneja or ninja. It's not the most kind of favorite meditation in the Buddhist texts, but it is there. And what you will see, I will ask you to focus on a very specific point. You can do it with eyes closed. If you're not comfortable with eyes closed, you can have them slightly open and just let a little bit of light in. What I do, I focus on this point here because I used to do breath meditation in the past, so I got used to the spot. But not to focus on the breath, but to focus on a very tiny spot, as if you had a needle and you would slightly touch it. It would be, I don't know, a square 0.1 millimeter or something, or 0.05 millimeter. This tiny spot, and not to move with your mind anywhere. So to focus here, there will be some sensation. It will be slight. You can use a little bit of the breath to locate it, but what I ask you to do is to make the spot as small as possible. Other possibilities are, this is basically a spot that, again, for the ones who do meditation, Masi Sayadaw suggested to use the movement of the abdomen, right? When you breathe, the abdomen moves, and to take one spot, basically, that you can perceive while you're moving, and to use that spot. Try that a little bit. Another possibility that people who practice Zen do, they have the hands folded and the thumbs touch, and then to have the touching point of the thumbs as the spot. Don't take the whole area, choose a tiny spot, again, as small as possible, and use that as the point that should focus where you anchor your mind. If you kind of, as if you're, what is the metaphor in the Buddha, as if you have a stick and you ram it into the ground, this is where it is, it doesn't move. I can tell you right away, you will not succeed. It's not about succeeding, it's about trying. Yes, because what I would like you to do, and here I come back to my introduction, what I would like you to do is to experience that mind is moving. It doesn't want to be still. It will, first of all, you will have memories, you will have thoughts, you're not used to the sitting posture, like the legs will distract you, you will have some pain, you will think about when does it finally end, all of those thoughts, first of all. If you're a little bit better, if you succeed a little bit more, you will try to zero in on the spot. Let's say the spot is here and the mind will do this, start to wiggle around. And then the kind of the challenge is to make it narrow down on the spot. Yes. When you're even more successful, finally the mind will land there and will stay there. And then something is happening that is very satisfying. Suddenly a feeling of peace will come. But again, don't try to, be too ambitious with that. It's a matter of kind of practice to do that. Now, what is it that is moving in the mind? It is something that in Buddhist philosophy is called the asaras. It's the outflowing of the mind. The mind is constantly moving and it's outflowing. When I put this in psychological terms, it's the unconscious that is bothering us. The unconscious is producing, it makes me think of my past, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my work, my pain, and so on. This is the unconscious that is moving and is producing material. And this, the unconscious is making us, it puts us into a certain trance. And here I introduce another kind of difference between psychology and spirituality. Psychology is, not everyone will agree, but it tries to create a certain trance in our mind. Trance is, we can have very deep trances when we are kind of under hypnosis. Very slight trances we constantly have. Like you walk to the bus, you're in a slight trance, you think about what to do, you're trying to relax or something, you're thinking of your work or what to cook and so on. This is a slight trance. When I'm in a trance, I'm in experience mode. In my mind, I'm lying on my couch and I try to see something that is interesting or that makes me happy. I'm thinking of the bad work and I'm trying to shake it off. Like, no. Bad circumstances, bad trance. It puts me in a bad mood. Let me think of something happy, or let me kind of find a good movie to watch today to get myself into a good trance. Again, the job of psychology or psychotherapy is to create conditions for me to be in good trances, that good feelings are produced. So basically, I want my unconscious to be my friend and to produce good stuff so that I'm okay with my kind of the production studio of my unconscious. Spirituality in Buddhism is not very interested in that. It tries to show you, look, there are these outflows of the mind. There are conditions for it. Your job is not to get attached to it. Now, when we do meditation successfully, in quotes, don't get too hung up on it, but the more successful we are, the more we block the production or the effect of the unconscious on the conscious mind. Consciousness, in contrast to the unconsciousness, becomes the more important entity. And the closer we get to what is called immersion or samadhi, or I don't know what another term is, when we get close to those kind of ideal meditation states, the production of the unconscious is almost quiet. And what the mind experiences is the qualities of consciousness. And the qualities of consciousness in our mind, they're very light, they're very open, spacious, joyful, or even ecstatic. This is the quality of the mind that is less under the influence of the unconscious and experience more consciousness. Okay, I try to find a loop in there. I said before that in our normal states of mind, we kind of sit on the couch and we hope that good things happen to us. We're kind of passive and we more experience. What it means to be in meditation or to get closer to immersion or samadhi means to put on our kind of our shoes of active action. We're not in reaction mode. We're not on the couch, lazy, hoping to be carried away and float into space or something like that. We're constantly active. We are directing the mind. Coming back to my suggestion to practice, we're directing the mind to one spot, touching on the thumbs or somewhere here, or the movement of the abdomen. So we don't care what we experience, right? So again, I'm suggesting don't be frustrated. Your frustration is basically your unconsciousness responding to not success, which is very mundane. It's very worldly. When I don't succeed at work, when I don't succeed with a communication, in sports, I get frustrated or sad or unhappy. This is normal mind stuff. This is kicking back on the couch and experiencing something unpleasant, passive. We try to switch into active mode. Action, 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 action. When I do this, I don't care about the result. I don't care if I'm happy or not. What I care about is to get to my goal, which is conscious, 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 directing the mind. And by emphasizing the consciousness or active part of the mind and de-emphasizing and taking back the effect that the unconscious has on me. Okay. This is the practice. Now, what happens if I have a mind that is very troubled? Let's say I really have a psychological issue. The unconscious is very strong. It will disturb that. Not necessarily in the session. I can, with brutal force, I can force myself, especially if I'm used to it. I can force my mind to be concentrated, to focus on one spot, on one meditation object. But in daily life, my mind will throw me, from one side to another. I will get from one trouble to another, which will make it more difficult next time to meditate. So here we have kind of a two-step model to approach spirituality. It's necessary in a way to be psychologically sound and healthy, because if not, my unconscious will create trouble all the time and will make it very difficult for me to leave the couch, so to speak, and to get into active mode. It will bombard me with kind of difficult experiences from my unconscious. So this is another way kind of where psychology and or therapy relate to spirituality. A sane mind, so to speak, is a precondition for a long-term successful meditation practice. Okay, we can put all these kinds of concepts to the side, and we can discuss it afterwards if you have questions or comments or observations. We will sit for 40 minutes. Again, I encourage you to focus on non-movement, not moving the body and not moving the mind. I will have a separation of those 40 minutes in two parts, because especially for the ones who are not used to it, to sit for 40 minutes without movement is very difficult. Don't be a hero. If it's too painful, too distractive, then again, like I said, the unconscious is bombarding you with pain and discomfort. You will not be able to sit quietly or without movement. If you can, if it's manageable, wait for the sound. There will be a sound after 20 minutes. Then relax your legs and so on, and until you're comfortable again, and then come back for the second 20 minutes. The instruction, again, is relatively simple. Don't get distracted by any kind of distraction of your mind. Don't get frustrated, because you will not be able to do it. Also, I will not be able to do it. It's very difficult kind of to do it kind of flawlessly, so that mind just settles on one point. But keep in mind that maybe something interesting happens the closer you get. The goal is not to get to the samadhi. The goal is to understand what happens when a mind, your mind, my mind, what happens when a mind tries to be in action mode, to direct its attention to one spot only. So I encourage you more to have it as a learning experience. I will not do too much of talking. It's not a guided meditation in that sense. A guided meditation emphasizes more the trance aspect. I would like to emphasize more kind of the concentration aspect of the meditation practice. I will talk a little bit to bring you back sometimes, especially after the 20 minutes when there is the sound. I'll just repeat the instructions. And yeah, when the time is over, then we can talk a little bit about your experiences. We'll start with a gong. After 20 minutes, there will be like a wooden sound, something like that. And then in the end, there will be a gong again. And it's all by an app, because it's cool. And so I suggested the 3 points. One is at the tip of the nose, one is the movement of the abdomen, or the point that you experience when the abdomen moves through breathing. The third one is the touching of the thumbs. The touching of the thumbs is clear. The movement of the abdomen is less clear. It's more difficult to zero in on a very tiny spot. When you pick the tip of the nose, know that zero in on the spot where the experience should be. And whether you have experience there or not, patiently focus on that spot. Experience will come. Experience always comes when we zoom in to a specific point, be it the skin or be it a different space in the mind. Here we focus on a tiny spot on the skin, again, be it the thumbs or the tip of the nose. Make the spot as small as possible. Tiny, 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 tiny. And even when there's no experience there, with some time it will come. For the beginners, use either the thumbs, the touching of the thumbs, or use the breath as a kind of an anchor to experience this region around the tip of the nose, so that the mind has more kind of help and support to stay there. Sitting for 20 minutes. Feel like you can relax the body for a while. You can stretch out your legs. Relax the tension in your spine. Lightly keep the focus on the spot that you're focusing on. Observe what's happening. Our obstacle is distraction. Distraction means that we switch into a mode of experience and we leave the mode of being active. The task of meditation is to again and again activate intention. When we don't do that, we forget, and the mind slips away into bodily feelings, daydreaming, thoughts, memories. And our practice is to activate and direct our intention again and again and again. And when we are more familiar with the practice, we increase the frequency of our intention. So that ideally we have a high frequency of directed intention at our meditation object, and today the space, the tiny space that you want to focus on. And the ones of you who are a bit more experienced, try to increase the frequency with which you direct your intention on the spot. Experience a slow pulsation at the spot. This is the frequency of your intention. Increase the pulsation, the frequency of it. So that as much as possible, we replace our normal, mixed, unconscious way of experiencing with conscious intention, the active aspect of our mind, of our consciousness. Okay, it's the end of our sitting. And relax both your body and your intention. Now, please, for a moment, for a minute or two, direct your attention to the state of mind that you now have. Because the state of mind that you now have is the result of what you have been practiced. And maybe you have been daydreaming the whole time, then the mind will be accordingly. If you have done your first steps in directing your intention in this way, you might feel exhausted in a way. Maybe there's some lightness or numbness, whatever it is, there's no right and wrong. It's just about having an understanding of what is the result that I have now from what I was practicing. Okay. I encourage everyone to give a comment about the observations, especially the ones who are beginners often feel that I don't have anything worth to say or so. But what is going on in the mind is always interesting. And it's always interesting for others to hear what your experiences were and to reflect on that. Also, everyone on Zoom is invited to join us in the conversations with comments or questions. At the beginning, if you have experienced in a way that I suggested, maybe comment or ask something that is related to that. And after that, if you have other broader questions about your practice or Buddhism in general, we can address those. Maybe just a quick check for the beginners. How punishing was the body for you?
In the first half, it was like a torture, to be honest. I was like, my legs were numb and my back was killing me. But on the second half, it was like kind of interesting because it stopped hurting me like at all. My back and my legs were fine. Like it was still numb, but it was like kind of fine. I wasn't worried about it at all. And I was losing balance for some reason all the time. Like I closed my eyes on the second half. On the first half, I tried to open eyes. On the second half, I closed my eyes and I was losing balance all the time. I tried to concentrate on thumbs. Kind of like that. I haven't succeeded, I think, but it was kind of interesting.
Would you say that, were you conscious sometimes that the mind was wandering?
I was kind of losing conscious for some time, like I was kind of falling like to the side maybe. And I was catching myself in the motion. Okay. Yeah, but kind of like that. Okay. Yeah, that's not unexpected. You can work on your posture, right? Maybe you can look it up online so that it's more stable. That's one thing. And you can indeed, as you did in the first half, you can work with, you can practice with open eyes. It will help you to stabilize as well, maybe. I'm not used to sitting on the floor at all.
Yes.
I'm rarely sit on the floor, but I'm gonna practice it to be better.
Yes, you can sit on a chair as well if you practice at home. You will see that with the posture, you will get different results. So the more comfortable we are, the more the mind invites us to daydream. So of course you can lie also down, but then dozing off, daydreaming or falling asleep will be so much more easier. To sit in a chair looks like a more stable option, but you will see that it's not necessarily. So it might be easier for the back and for the legs, but for stability, it's still not super easy. Sitting is traditional, but it is actually a good posture if you can manage it. I'm not great with sitting myself. You can try to experiment. The main thing is that the mind has to be there and to find a posture that is supporting your meditation efforts and not obstructing it. That's the main thing.
For me, it was really interesting because I tried to focus on this point on my nose, and I don't feel on my legs. Really, my part of this body, I don't feel. Everything is here. Yeah. Sometimes when I lose focus on my nose, I feel something to, powiedzieć, ciągnie mnie, że coś mnie tak pulling. Yeah, over here. Yes. So
Okay. Good.
Come back, focus here. Okay. It's really interesting.
And how do you experience when you were focused? What was the experience there? Was it empty, or was there a specific physiological experience? How was that?
First step, I try to see my nose, and then I want to feel when I breathe. And I feel this one small point. Okay, I am here. Okay,
good. How do you feel now after the session? Do you feel any kind of different result?
Yeah, I don't think about many things. I am really more focused on one.
Yes. Okay, good. As I said in the beginning, and by the way, everyone on Zoom, I'm happy to invite you to add with your comments or questions. Someone said that they couldn't focus today. That's of course okay. That's the circumstances that we are exposed to. So in the beginning, I said that we're interested in the truth of the categories when we are dealing in spirituality in general, not just in Buddhism. So what were the categories for today, for our sitting? One is the teaching or the instruction, right? So it's important if I understand it. If I don't understand it, obviously the consequences are that I cannot use it or follow it. If I do understand it, it has other results. The second is trust or faith, right? So you might understand what I said, and it's like, okay, I get what he's saying, but you would come to the conclusion, this is stupid what he says, or I will follow my own thing, or it doesn't make sense at all. So I understood what I said, but there is no faith or trust. The results will be accordingly, right? I'm not saying trust what I say, just see that this is a category that is important for the outcome. So there's kind of the concept or the instruction. In Buddhism, this is the Dharma, the Dhamma. Then you have faith or trust in the teacher or the teaching. The next one is the energy that we have, right? I might understood the teaching. I can have faith and say, okay, he knows what he's talking about, but I'm so tired today. I have no energy, or I'm too exhausted, whatever. The result must go down. It must go down. There is no other way. If I have no energy, there is no outcome of the meditation. That's a fact. There is no other way to see it, right? So it's a fact of the mind. So let's say I understood, I have faith, I have the energy. The fourth factor that we need is the directed intention, the directed attention. This is mindfulness. This is in Pali, this is sati. Sati literally means memory. And this is how we have to understand memory. In traditional Buddhism, there is no such thing as pure mindfulness. As I'm blissfully, walking on clouds or something like that. There's no such thing. Or as some people understand, I experience everything at the same time. This is what mindfulness is. There is no such thing. Experience is always directed. It can be random, right? So there's a meditation practice that is vipassana, and then I'm opening my mind to the random movement, and whatever's popping up, there is a car, I direct my attention there. There is pain in the leg, I direct it there. So this directed intention is following kind of the objects of the mind, but it's not random. And it's not all-encompassing. I cannot perceive same things at the same time, or many things at the same time. When we're doing directed or focused meditation, concentration meditation, so to speak, or samadhi meditation, or samatha meditation, these are all terms from Buddhism, then we focus on one object only. That's the difference. So we hammer the object again and again and again. And when our mindfulness is strong, when our sati is strong, what I hinted at before, we have a high frequency of penetrating the objects. You know, instead of our normal mode, our normal mode is when I kind of put it a little bit in a metaphor, it's like that. And in the rest of the time, our unconscious is giving us distractions, thoughts and memories and feeling, and I'm somewhere else, right? When I'm kind of more skilled, when I discover this muscle of mindfulness, what I can do is, by the sheer focus, I can do that. Right? I can hammer the object more and even more. When I do that, the unconscious has very little possibility to, it doesn't have so much power anymore to take me somewhere else, because I've replaced kind of the passive experiencing with the very active directedness of my mind. When we have those factors together, right? I understood what the instruction is, the concepts. I have trust and faith that there is something meaningful to this practice. I have the energy today or at this moment to practice what I understood. And I have the mindfulness, which is the directed intention. Then the results of the meditation will be accordingly, and it ends up in something like samadhi, or a pleasant, present state of mind, as ideally I feel very much in the present, because I'm constantly experiencing what's going on right now, and not so much what comes from the background of my mind, from my unconscious. Okay, there is a thank you in general. Any other questions or comments from the room or in Zoom?
How meditation affects your focus on the tasks?
On tasks?
On a daily basis, yeah.
I would not have, if you want to concentrate on tasks at work or something, there are better tools than meditation. Meditation is a very slow process. It works, but it's like, I don't know, you learn to dance just in order to move nicely, you know, to the tram or so. It's not for that. There are kind of better ways to kind of learn to concentrate on a worldly, normal level. That's mine, so I don't know if you have any other experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend, like, what problems normally do you experience with like?
It's you can call it ADHD, but basically when you're sitting and doing something, I would like to think only about what I'm doing, not only about other, like things that I have to do or that is going on in my life. I would like to sit in like a robot, focus on one thing, and do it like for an hour, for example, right? Like for 2 hours or an hour. Maybe then a little break and again and again and again. But to me, like I'm trying to go to the gym all the time, for example. It kind of helps me, but not that much. I would like to be, as like I said, like a robot to do everything that I want to. Yeah, kind of struggling with this. I'm asking about it.
Yeah, that's curious. Like, why do you want to be like a robot, right? And like, because it's clearly just one part of you that wants that, and the rest doesn't want. Like the question is like, which part is like wiser, or? And because there's a conflict, so maybe the attitude is steering this conflict because you like it's pushing, right? So it always has like that.
Yeah, I'd like to think it's laziness, to be honest. So you know what you're doing is good for you, and you know that you need to do this to be better. That's something to, I don't know, to advance in something, right? But at the same time, you have those, I don't know what it is, like power that's all the time pulls you back, like distracts you from what you're doing, like something like that.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say, like in my case, what helped was like curiosity about the mind, and then you start seeing, you can start doing it in meditation, like to see the causes, like be interested, like what is this voice telling, like what kind of energy, like what is one, and then there are different causal levels in which you can work with that, right? So one is just like exercise or stand and so on. You can also work with these different voices through like therapy, or you can get like ADHD medication, which is completely different level of causality, right? It is interesting for me just to think about this and to actively search for which level is the most like adequate, right? Because clearly like not, yeah. I mean, the samadhi is also like unification. So like not the whole mind thinks about, because what if you decided that you need to work like for 2 days without a break, without drinking anything, like there's wisdom of survival in these other voices, right? So sometimes also changing perspective helps, like, and help to bring them together, right? And find more sustainable way to. But in my, I don't know, in my experience, it helps to meditation, but maybe not this kind of single focus, but just like to be aware, like to constantly remind yourself to be relaxed, and then these other parts of the mind, unconscious, also will be relaxed. So we're thinking about the whole, not just this one part, right?
There are two components that are working all the time. I mean, your case is just a special case, right? The ADHD mind, let's call it this way, is also active in meditation.
I don't know what it is. I never got diagnosed.
No, I'm just saying. Like,
overall.
It's a special case of the distracted mind, right? Yeah. Let's say you have ADHD or someone has ADHD. What you experience when you try to meditate, and especially when you're a beginner, is something similar dynamic. You want to focus on something, the touch of the thumbs, but what the mind does is to shoot you around, right? To distract you all the time. We have two components. One is wisdom and one is force. So if I'm not wise, I don't know anything about myself, about my unconscious, my needs, my drives. I've done no psychological work. I'm basically a child. I can still balance that with force. I can put a lot of force into it. I'm forcing myself to focus, right? I can do that. I can do that also in meditation. And there are some teachers who emphasize that, just hammer through, no understanding, bam, bam, bam.
Well, that's what I do.
Yes,
to be honest.
It sounds great because it's it tickles our ego power. Like we would like to be able to control that. The thing is, you pay a price. This is what you have to keep in mind. The price is exhaustion. Exhaustion plus other things. The unconscious will not like what you do. You try to be the boss. The unconscious says, I'm the boss. It's a lot of trouble. For a while, you can do it. The other side is what Anvan emphasized is you can be more wise. And for example, self-kindness and self-love goes more in this direction. To accept that parts of me don't want to do that all the time, so I put in some breaks occasionally. I explore the conditions under which I'm more positively, for example, motivated. I can change the reward structure. I can do work management. After every 20 minutes, I get a snack or I watch a YouTube video. These are psychological tools, right? But basically they're based on a more wise understanding than just to power through. And on the long term, I think this is more sustainable.
Meditation is very important today because we...
Say again, what is important today?
Meditation. Because we don't have time to free mind. Yeah, we must do something, watch something. It's
pressure, right? All the time.
Yeah, but if we don't need to do something, we watch something.
Yes.
We don't have time when we don't do anything and mind and thinking about something, you know.
Yes.
Nie wiem, jak to powiedzieć, żeby płynęły te myśli swobodnie i niczym nie były zaruszane.
And also from my side in meditation, in my work, I noticed that when I need, for example, to do some task in the work, I just work in, and for example, some solution not coming, like I don't know how to solve something, but with meditation, I just started to be relaxed, and it just came outside. So it's also interesting that when I relax and not thinking about the task, like very concentrate, somehow it's coming and that's all. So
okay, it can be. This is it's a little bit luck, you know. Not everyone is structured like this, because I want to avoid that people think, oh, when I want to solve problems, meditation will help me. This is not how it works. For some people it does, but it doesn't matter what you want to use meditation for. It's not for that. It's not a tool that is supposed to help me with sports, work, relationship, whatever, all of these things. It's like buying a very fancy machine to do something very small. You know, like you buy the best drill in the world to hang a picture at the wall. You can do it, but it's not the purpose for that.
I also want to say that there's no other way. Like almost always when people start to meditate, they have these intentions, right? And then through meditation, they refine this intention. They find that maybe my original intention actually wouldn't lead to my happiness, or right, like in the long run, like we can question with time, but there's no other way. Like we have to try doing something.
Yes, that's right. So it's what I said in the beginning, it's a little bit artificial, you know, when I said that there is psychology and here's meditation, that psychology is about tweaking and changing circumstances so that I feel better, so that I work better, and so on. Yes, but, you know, meditation, of course, will partly go in that direction because this is what we want. Just when usually, I think when you talk to people who practice for a longer time, it becomes kind of a beautiful thing on its own. It's, you know, like art maybe that doesn't have a specific function. It's just to create the sense of beauty or awe or inspiration or something like that. Okay, I don't see a specific question online on Zoom. I'm sorry, everyone online, for the sirens. I don't hear them. Any other more general questions about Buddhist practice or Buddhism and its concepts?
I also was interested in some last time ago about table of Sakko, or Kalko, with this metal sticks on which you stand by feet, yeah? And you are trying to not feel in the pain, yeah? To have a harmony in this state. So it is also like kind of meditation or some advanced meditation maybe.
I don't know that at all. It sounds more like a trance to me. It's surely not a traditional Buddhist practice. You know, to be able to kind of channel energies and so on, especially for the tantric traditions, I don't know the sexual part of tantrism, but the historical tantrism, this is what they were specialized in, to direct energies into certain places of our mind, to experience specific things in our body, to change the heart rate, to change the pulse, to change the temperature of our body. Like they were very skillful in doing all these things. Many in Indian tradition, they did kind of bodily exercises that are very impressive, I guess. They could endure a lot of pain, for example, and put themselves into a state of mind that did that. But it's not traditionally Buddhist. I don't know if you have heard of that.
I know what is the rationale of this particular, but I would say on the other hand, like that we could also see it as a spectrum, because even if we pretend here that we don't do anything, we actually do. We don't open eyes if we don't have enough energy, for example, right? So you could see that if, for example, that these kind of practices are verging towards providing you, they solve the problem of energy, because when there's pain, there's more alertness to the mind, right? But they may cause different problems, right? But for example, for sure you will fall asleep, and the mind will be more alert. So some teachers are talking about observing pain, right? And right, so it's interesting to try watching the mind in these conditions than the other, because in that case probably the problem will be more with aversion, with like a lot of aversion versus like this dullness, pleasant dullness, and both are problematic, right? But it's I don't know. It's interesting sometimes to be in a situation where watch the mind in a situation where, like under a cold shower, where it's like a lot of alertness, right, and different conditions, and see what I can get from that. How can I observe the mind when there's a lot of energy, but maybe other factors are out of balance. Let's say.
It's good, again, this is a part of wisdom to understand what do I need in my practice. There are people who constantly fall asleep, like no matter what they do, like they sit in the most uncomfortable position and they still doze off. So for them, for a while at least, it's good to create something more alertness, right? So with a lot of light, for example, or with temperature, or kind of they pinch themselves, or to create some painful experiences or something, because they have to counterbalance this lethargy, right? This dullness of the mind. So this would be a more Buddhist perspective on that, but I don't see a kind of a specific value in learning how to sit on a stick and not feel any pain. Okay. So far for today. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Thank you, everyone online, and have a nice evening.